In today's video, we're going to be taking a look here at this modeled guidance where we do have multiple major snowstorms to track here that are going to be potentially happening in the eastern United States. But not only that, we also have a big cooldown that will or will not happen. We do know that there will be a bit of a cooldown at least, but if that will be a major Arctic blast or if it'll just be a bit of a cold front is up for discussion. Now, you guys know I usually cheer for cold and snow. But this time around, I'm actually the opposite. The trees are blooming here in Virginia. It's getting warm. I enjoy thunderstorms myself, and I really would just prefer to transition into spring at this point. Even a snowstorm, as exciting as that would be, I don't feel like is my favorite solution to happen here. It doesn't really matter what I want to happen, but I'm just letting you guys know. So I probably would refer to a less major cooldown as good news, just because I know that the plants will actually pretty much have no leaves all year from what I've heard, if that freeze does happen after they've bloomed, or a hard freeze at least. So that would be very bad. So we're kind of cheering against that here on the channel, but you're welcome, obviously, to cheer for whatever you like. That's just something that, I'm not cheering for. Now, we can see that already by the time we're reaching this morning into this afternoon, we do have a major snowstorm for the Northeast. And really, as long as this mixing kind of stays under wraps, we should have accumulations of 10 inches plus throughout portions of New England and New York, so New York into Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Let's go ahead and see what this European model is calling for. I know we're jumping right into this, but let's just take a look at it. We'll zoom into the New England regions here. Yeah, so in general, this model, a lot of this has already fallen, by the way, by the time you're watching this video, or if not almost all of it, but we could see that a good 10 to 15 inches, maybe 10 to 13 inches here from the European model, but a good range would be 10 to 15. You know, there is some error in the model, so you can expect potentially 2 to 4 inches less or more than what the model is showing. So that does leave room for about 15 inches of accumulation in the absolute bullseye regions here. So this is a major snowstorm, and believe it or not, I mean, historically, this is a moderate snowstorm for these areas, maybe a semi-major snowstorm, but, you know, happens multiple times a year. This isn't that crazy. But the thing is this is probably their biggest snowstorm of the season, and we're at March 5th. So that is absolutely crazy to think about. All the way down in Virginia, I've had snowstorms of this magnitude probably 3 or 4 times over the past 10 years. So, you know, I'm hundreds of miles further south than this. So for these areas, this isn't, you know, a record-breaking snowstorm by any means. But for this season, it does happen to just be a very major one compared to what we've been dealing with. We do get a bit of a major snowstorm actually as well here, or a minor. I don't know if I said major on accident, but definitely not major. This is a minor snowstorm by the time we're reaching Tuesday morning. That's going to be March 7th. And that should lead towards potentially 1 to 3 inches of snowfall, depending on where you're at. Maybe just a dusting. And then we get our next major storm system, probably bringing our next bout of severe weather and kind of temperature changes. I'd be watching underneath for Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana for that severe weather, maybe even areas further north. This is where the cold front is extending down, and we have this warm front here, and then your low is located right here. We can see plenty of snowfall here to the north and west of that low, and this, again, would just be that next major storm to move through. Wouldn't even be surprised if by time we're reaching Friday into Saturday, we had severe weather here for the southeast as well, and then we have some snowfall happening here. We can also see that this is when that positive PNA is taking place, so we have a jet stream like this. Once the low moves through, that cooldown should be fully engulfed in the eastern United States, but certainly we're dealing with a full-fledged positive PNA pattern here. Kind of got a little overkill there, but we can see that there's something like this happening. But once we move on, we can see that once the low gets offshore, this brings a bit of a major snowstorm to the mid-Atlantic and perhaps the Northeast. There's a 993 millibar low pressure center there. And by this point, we see a full-fledged cool down here. It's doing something like this, but the cold air is beginning to reach into the eastern United States. This is a lot less major than what we saw in previous model runs, which, again, as I kind of put it in the beginning of the video, that is good news in my opinion. And we see that comes to an end by the time we're reaching right around the 14th. So this is far out. Let's take it with a grain of salt, but I want to go ahead and zoom into the east and take a look at that total snowfall just for this storm. So this is going to be the 3-day snowfall. So just this snowstorm would bring, again, another 10 to 15 inch snowstorm, perhaps more here if you're in West Virginia, Western Virginia, areas in Western Maryland and Southern Pennsylvania. This has the potential to be a 10 to 15 inch plus snowstorm. Location is not specific, but if it does take this track, we do see highly mountainous regions in here, and these areas usually do very good during snowstorms just like this one. So if it did happen this way, that would be the look. Regardless, this has the potential to drop, again, 10 to 15 inches, maybe even approaching 20 inches or more. So definitely something to track. But again, we're looking at about 10 days from now. So there is a lot of room for things to shift around. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at that total precipitation. This is going to tell us where a lot of our storms are coming from. We can see a lot of these moving onshore here to the northwest. Southwest left a little bit drier than we've seen for most of the season. This is a little bit more what we expected. This pattern actually is exactly what we expected for the entire winter. Obviously, that did not happen. That was a complete bust on my part. But we can see that we finally get the pattern we expected. It just happened, you know, a good 2 months later, 3 months later than we expected it to occur. So there was the potential for that to happen. It just didn't come together. We can see that mostly we're going to see something like this with the precipitation. Once this low is right here, we're going to see something like that, and it's going to move down like this, and then it's going to move offshore, and that's what the flow is going to be with the warm front. So we're going to see something like that, and that's going to lead towards above average amounts of precipitation in these areas. Regardless of if it's snowfall or rainfall, you will likely be seeing above average precipitation during the next 10 days in all these red areas. Now, as we take a look at the total snowfall, we can see we get a major snowstorm doing this, which brings a major snowstorm up here. And then we also get the one that ends up offshore here, bringing snowfall up and down, kind of your Appalachian area into New England. This leads towards a lot of these areas seeing 10 to 20, even more inches of snowfall. So certainly a very, very intense pattern. Also, we see the northern plains, upper Midwest doing really well with 10, 20 inches of snowfall. And then, of course, the west out here, the mountainous west, doing extremely well with snowfall as they have all season long. I'm sure the ski resorts are doing historically well out west. Let me know if you know that. If you're out west and you know anything about ski resorts, how are they doing out there? I'm sure incredible. Maybe too much snow, if anything. I don't know if that's a thing. I'm not a big skier, but maybe there is. Maybe the ski lifts get caught at the bottom if there's too much snow. I don't know. We can see on the GFS model, we get great agreement with that first snowstorm. We do get this storm signal around the 11th, also over kind of your central United States regions here. We see the low right there. And we do get this kind of severe weather look, a little bit of a different tilt to it, a little bit further eastward, but I think it's the same idea, just a different result. I guess that's how I would put it. And then on the GFS model, this is where we get big time differences. We have our low located over Minnesota and Iowa. And where was it located on our European model? Let's go ahead and check. Let me see what hour that was. So that's 12Z Sunday. And your European model has it a good 500 miles eastward here offshore of New Jersey. So we can see the difference in the GFS and the European model. You know what we should do? We should take a look here at our Canadian model and see where this one has the low, so we can really, really dive deep here. So this is going to be Sunday 12Z. Okay, so your your Canadian model, which we'll put in red here, is going to be right there. So we do have some differences. I think that's to say the least. We have some differences here showing up on the models. And as we continue on with that GFS model, we, if anything, get a major snowstorm here in the east. I consider this to be good news, and this is honestly what I'd be cheering for. And we do get a major cool down after that, though, which would be bad news for most of the plants and all sorts of stuff like that, because this is a full-fledged Arctic blast. There's no way around it. This would be top 3 cooldown of the entire season, and you know, we've definitely not seen a lot of cold air, so that's not to say that it's a historic cold event. Maybe for maybe mid to late March it is, I don't know, but we see a bit of a snowstorm here, very long range on the GFS as well. Take that with a grain of salt, to say the least. But we get kind of into this full-fledged big cooldown pattern here in the east. As we just take a look here at our European ensemble model, we can see that we get warm in the east, starts to get a little cooler, and then by the time we're reaching the 13th and beyond, what we see is the most kind of potent cool area is here. So this would be extremely bad news for the plants that think that it's mid-April in the east. I've gotten a lot of comments from people saying similar things. I can confirm in Virginia, it's the same exact thing. The plants are blooming. Our Bradford pear trees, they have gone beyond their white flowers and have actually already bloomed leaves as well here in Virginia, which is absolutely crazy, to say the least. Maybe looking at like a late April type bloom, and we're in the 4th of March. So very, very interesting to see the impacts that will bring. Obviously, it's not like a disaster by any means, but it just is something that could lead towards some death with plants, really. Dying plants even. I don't know what the implications are, but definitely could be bad for some folks, and it's interesting to me, to say the least. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe, as we do upload every single day, and we will get to the bottom of all of this. Also, be sure to hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Like the video if you did enjoy it, and leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.